I have come to an opinion on George Soros. I know you've all been waiting for it. You watched me being skeptical about all the stuff on mostly social media that says George Soros is the devil, he's behind everything bad, he's funding all these bad organizations, etc. But every time somebody would point me to a link, it was always a dead end. And I kept thinking, what are other people seeing that I can't Google? You know, there were stories about the things he did when he was 14, which doesn't matter to me. There were stories about how he makes his money by betting against currencies and it's bad for countries. And I hate that, but it's all legal. You know, you could hate that separately from what he's doing politically. But the political stuff about what he's funding and how much impact he has, etc., just seemed this big opaque. I couldn't penetrate it. But I've penetrated it enough to learn the following, and fact check me on this if you will. That George Soros puts a great deal of money into political, I guess they would all be called political activist groups. So I think that much. So the two facts that I think everybody agrees on, he puts in a lot of money and that they're for political things, and that they tend to be more on the left. Now, people who are more on the right say, okay, that's all I need to know. He's putting a lot of money into things I don't like. I'm not quite willing to make that leap because we don't really know what his intention is. We can't see the budget. We don't know how much impact he has. We don't know if the organization is doing things that he would approve of, or he just gives money and sometimes they do things he likes and sometimes they don't. We just don't know. It's this big, hard to determine, you know, is he really the main funder behind this or that, or is he just one of them? You can't tell. So here's my opinion. Because he has so much money, and because we know he is employing it in political ways, and here's the key, because we can't tell how it's being used, that's enough to declare him an enemy of the state. Am I wrong? It wouldn't matter what he was funding. So I would say the same thing if all of his money were going into causes for conservative purposes. I would say exactly the same thing. The fact that we can't tell what he's spending it on, and it's a tremendous amount of money, and its very purpose is to change the political nature in my country, it doesn't matter what he's spending it on. So I was a little bit obsessed trying to figure out, okay, but really, what is he actually putting the money into? Like, if I don't know what he's spending it on, how am I supposed to judge him? But I've seen now that there's so much money, and it's being funneled into things that are absolutely showing up in the headlines, and they're absolutely changing how people feel about things, and they're absolutely changing politics, and we didn't vote for him. I don't remember voting for a billionaire to run my country in some way. Now, let me be as clear about this as possible. If, and I can't imagine this happening, but if Soros said, hey, you know, I'm going to be more transparent. Here's all the money I give, and here's all the groups I give to, and here's why. I like these groups. Let's say he goes full Tom Steyer. Somebody said it just before I was. Tom Steyer, I dislike everything he's doing, but I don't find him to be, I don't know, an enemy of the country or something, because he's so transparent. You know, it's my money. I'm putting it here. Here's what I want to accomplish. Now, I hate what he wants to accomplish. I hate that. But it's a free country. He's got freedom of speech. He's got money. There's no law against it. I can at least respect, yes, I can respect the transparency. But Soros seems intentionally not to be transparent. I think sometimes you can find out that he has donated to groups, but if you don't know how much, you don't know exactly what they're up to, and you don't know how he may have influenced them, it's all invisible. So I think that Soros could legitimately be called an enemy of the state being the United States in this case, only because of the lack of transparency. And the big influence, lack of transparency, worse situation. All right. And again, I would say the same thing if he were funding only conservative things. So my opinion has nothing to do with his politics. It has to do with the lack of transparency combined with its big impact.